Hey, it's Jafat Jalbert, no, wait, it's Triple J Trail Mix. And just so you all know, from here on out, we just discussed this. We are adding a J to whoever's name is on the podcast. So last week we had Jacarly. This week we may have Jafaith, but we will see. But it is your boys, Jackie, JT, and Jiraten, or Jajon.
John.
Jajon.
We're
But
all about them J's.
yes, all about the J's, the triple J's. But anyway, we are coming to you this week with a discussion, a really serious, heart-warming, intense discussion about Marvel Phase 2, because those movies are just so intense and require deep thought. Not that I'm dissing them in that they're like, that's not an insult. It's just a joke. So a joke. It's a joke. But
we're all going to be talking with a stutter for the rest of this episode.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
But Drayton, how about you list off the movies that Phase 2 covers?
Yeah, good idea. Jump right in.
So for Phase 2, we have the same amount of movies as we did in Phase 1. And that, so Phase 2 began right after the first Avengers film. So we have Iron Man 3, we have Thor: The Dark World, we have Captain America: The Winter Soldier, we have Guardians of the Galaxy, we have Avengers: Age of Ultron, and Ant-Man.
Oh, Ant-Man's considered part of Phase 2?
Yep.
I skipped that one. Whoops.
Wait a second.
You're good.
Wait a second. Wait. Say the first one again.
Iron Man 3.
Wow. That's interesting. For me it's weird, I guess, because Iron Man 3 is like in its own place with the Iron Man 2 and whatever, but it doesn't feel like Phase 2 to me, just mentally, because it's just all those other movies. I'm like, oh, those are new. Those Iron Man 3, that's so old.
Yeah, it's interesting that Iron Man got to his third movie pretty quickly.
Yeah, because they did 1 and 2 in Phase 1, and then 3, and then that was pretty much it for his solo movies.
Yep.
I mean, it probably was because he was the most popular one, and then like at least out of the few that they did, and then I think didn't Iron Man 3 get a few bad reviews, or people didn't like it as much because they were expecting the 10 rings or something, but it wasn't. It was just a switcheroo.
Yes, kind of. This one, reviews wise, yes, this is probably like out of the Iron Mans, is probably the bottom for a lot of people. It just depends on what kind of tone you prefer, because this is what I was going to bring up, was that this is the first Iron Man film to not have Jon Favreau as the director. He was the one that directed the first two, but then they brought in Shane Black to direct this one.
Wait, Shane Black did this one?
Yes, Shane Black did this movie.
Dang.
Which I knew you were going to recognize that, Jack, because he did the most recent Predator movie.
Yes, he did, and people didn't like it. But he was in the original. I'm pretty sure he was in the original, so people had high hopes for it. And then it just kind of, I don't know. I didn't think it was that bad. I can see why people didn't like it, but that's not in Marvel Phase 2.
Yeah, I need to be there.
Very true. This is actually also, to throw another fact out there, this is the first Iron Man movie to cross $1 billion. And it was the second Marvel like MCU movie to do that. The first one was Avengers.
Yeah, it was yeah, makes sense.
Wait. Budget wise or like box office wise?
Box office.
Okay. Wait, yeah, $1 billion for the budget would be kind of high.
Yeah, that would be crazy. Which they actually, what I also saw was that they had, it was originally $140 million of budget, but because of the success of Avengers and the MCU and everything, they bumped it up to 200 to give Shane Black
Mhm.
so that he'd be able to make a better movie.
How much difference does that make, though? Really, like, I guess you
Honestly,
could
I
have
don't know.
more explosions. I don't know, or have more
Yeah,
people.
maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I'm not sure.
But yeah, kind of branching off what you had said, like it's at the bottom of most people's Iron Man lists mainly because of the Mandarin twist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my biggest critique of that movie. Was just, I mean, ultimately it came back around, and had a pretty good redeeming qualities from Shang-Chi, when they brought Trevor back, but yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of that when I first watched it.
Very true.
And wasn't
For me,
No, go ahead,
go
Joe.
ahead.
No, you
I was just gonna say, for me, I don't really read the comics, so I didn't really know who the Mandarin was. But in general, I kind of like it when they're doing stuff that's unexpected, because it's like, if you just want to see the comic book story on the screen, I mean, it's kind of like you already know what's gonna happen. It just looks cool, but they have to kind of mix it up. So I can see, like, that's the reason for I didn't mind Wolverine or X-Men Origins Wolverine, and then isn't there another Marvel movie that did something where it didn't go? Oh yeah, Infinity War and Endgame, where they didn't quite follow the comics because everybody would know what happened, so that's why they did it the way they did it.
Kind of, yes.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
I don't know the comics, so it's not as big of a letdown for me, I guess. But I can see why they do it, and I would probably do it too, because you want to have at least some surprise in it, or have some twist that nobody's gonna see coming to go for your movie, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what I was gonna say was I remember like watching it now, and retroactively doing that. I can appreciate the twist that they put, but I remember going to see it when it came out and being very frustrated. Because even if I remember correctly, like a lot of the promotional material was building up the Mandarin, and plus you had all the hype of people who knew the comics, and like Mandarin is like one of the arch nemesis for Iron Man, and so to kind of
Yeah.
undersell him was a little bit,
It was a bit of a letdown.
yeah, a bit of a letdown. But the thing is, here's also another twist and turn in the road was that how they kind of they did a little juke on us for the Mandarin, but then the real villain happened to be another big Iron Man villain, which was MODOK, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that guy Aldrich Killian is MODOK in the comics, which that makes sense as a good Iron Man villain, because he's a what's the word? He's a technokinetic or something like that. He can move technology with his mind, or he has the ability to control any piece of technology. But the thing is that even though that villain makes sense in that regard, the form that he took wasn't that
Right.
in the movie. So it just kind of, it's like a double letdown.
Okay, so I was just thinking it'd be like if Carnage, the movie for Venom with Carnage, didn't have Carnage in it, or I guess if they didn't name it, let there be Carnage. But if they like had all the or the ads say, oh, there's gonna be Carnage in the movie, and then they didn't have Carnage, and they swapped it out with like some other like Doc Ock, but he doesn't have 4 arms. He's got
He's like a mutant octopus
something else.
human
Yeah, or
person.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that would be kind of a letdown.
Yes. Which see that's actually the same thing that happened with Batman v Superman, was that a ton of the commercials and stuff were hyping up like Superman and Batman fighting, and they thought that that was what was going to be the main third act of the movie. But then, first of all, they revealed Doomsday being in there in the second trailer, and that was a stupid move. They should have left it for the movie.
Yeah.
And then also, I think because of that being the actual third act, rather than Superman and Batman fighting each other, that kind of it pushed the Martha moment further down into the pit, to where people were, had added frustration onto it, because that was kind of a resolution to something that they had been, hyped up for through the promotional stuff.
Yeah, true.
So
that's also not a Marvel movie, so
yes, the same feeling.
same feeling though. Yes.
Yeah.
What I find interesting. Well, yeah, what I find interesting about Phase 2 is that like Iron Man 3, Thor: Dark World, and Avengers: Ultron. Those are like the 3 least liked movies of the entire MCU. Yes, based like from what I recall.
Yes, actually, yes.
Which is kind of interesting that they all happen in the same phase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is kind of.
Who directed them?
Well, we've got Shane Black for Iron Man 3. We have Alan Taylor coming to direct Thor: The Dark World.
So
because
none of
literally
them were John
the
Favreau?
Thor. What?
So as soon as John Favreau left, the movies started getting worse, is what I'm hearing.
I guess. I mean, you had other directors for the other Phase 1 films.
Oh, okay.
Because you had Joss Whedon that did the first Avengers film. You had this Louis Terrier doing Incredible Hulk, and then you had Joe Johnston for the first Captain America. And then you had what's his name? Kenneth Branagh to do the first Thor film. Literally all 3 of the Thor films have had a different director.
Interesting.
Wow, no wonder Chris Hemsworth didn't want to be Thor anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It was literally after Thor: The Dark World, that Chris Hemsworth started contemplating just not doing another Thor film.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because I don't know. I still don't think it's that terrible. When I first watched it, I enjoyed that one. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've only seen it once, to be honest, but I was really excited for it because Christopher Eccleston was in it, and I really liked him from Doctor Who, and he's a good actor as well, because he was in G.I. Joe. But I don't remember disliking it on the scale of people complaining about it. So I'm not on the bandwagon, but I also haven't seen it once. So.
I very much understand where people are coming from with their critiques about the movie, but for me, I still enjoy it. I thought there was a cool, how the first one kind of brought a lot of Shakespearean stuff, like a Shakespearean vibe to it, and that was mainly because Kenneth Branagh was a Shakespearean actor. But with this one, it brought a little bit more like Tolkien-ish vibes. I mean, maybe that's just mainly from the Dark Elves kind of thing, but I really liked that. It was cool. Which, fun fact, actually, one of the ones I've got written down here is that the language that the Dark Elves speak, mainly Christopher Eccleston and I can't even pronounce his whole name, but the guy that plays Curse, the big creature guy. The language that they speak was created by linguists specifically for this movie.
Wow.
And those 2 actors memorized it so that they could pronounce it correctly and speak that language for the movie.
Dang, that's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Which they do this a lot for different movies so that it doesn't sound like complete gibberish. Because that if you're gonna have super fans, they're gonna break down everything like they did with Elvish for Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, exactly.
That was mainly because J.R.R. Tolkien was a linguist, and he literally, like Quenya, Elvish language, it was literally the base. It was the first thing he created of any Lord of the Rings stuff. He built the world to fit the language.
Yeah. You mean, you've seen all those memes, like Tolkien was like, I'm going to create a language. Oh, this language is pretty cool. It needs a story to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Booyah. Yep,
More or
yep, yep. Also, a fun fact for this movie was that when Thor finally reveals himself to Jane Foster, and she comes up and slaps him in the face. So she did like 50 takes. All of them were like fake slaps, and it was until she had gotten so tired that she actually full on slapped Chris Hemsworth, and that's the take that they used.
That's awesome.
And then from all the takes used for that, when she, in the scene where she finally she finally sees Loki again in the movie,
Yeah.
and she punches his face, that was just straight on. She was planning on fake punching, but she had done so many of the takes beforehand that she full on punched Tom Hiddleston in the face. It's amazing.
That's funny.
Also, this movie is where we actually formally get introduced to the Infinity Stones. That's where they first start calling them the Infinity Stones.
In
And
Dark World?
in the Dark World. This is where they first started saying they started talking about that overarching plot of the Infinity Saga.
Oh. Is this where it kind of started, or did they plan it from the beginning, you think?
They planned it from the time that they introduced the Tesseract in Captain America.
Okay.
Yeah. So then, but this is when they first started referring to them as Infinity Stones, because as I mentioned, that a lot of the things that we refer to the Infinity Stones as, like the Tesseract or the Ether in Thor: The Dark World, and then stuff like that. Originally in the comics, those are separate things from the Infinity Stones, but they kind of interwove them together to fit all the different plot lines in these movies.
Which makes sense, honestly.
Yeah, I mean they do that a lot, and they're really good at it, and that's what makes it special. But it was actually almost like a post-production thing, because from what is mentioned, the ether, right, which we know as the Power Stone, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It was originally just the ether. They weren't gonna make it the Power Stone when they first shot the movie.
Aether, that's not the Power Stone. That's reality.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the reality stone, the red one.
The red one.
Yeah. So it's a reality stone. Thank you. But yeah, it was only in post production that they actually brought what's his name? The guy that plays Odin.
Anthony
Hopkins. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, they brought him in to re-voice, explaining that it is actually one of the Infinity Stones. So it wasn't until later on that, in the production process, that they decided to include that as a as the
maybe
reality stone.
It was on purpose so that it wouldn't be leaked.
Maybe that's a good idea.
Holland wasn't in that one though.
Yeah, they didn't have any big leakers in this one.
Or Mark Ruffalo.
True.
Oh yeah, true.
Aren't they the two trouble ones?
Yeah, Mark Ruffalo and Tom Holland are the big ones.
They can't keep their mouth shut.
My last point that I want to put on this one was this is really a story about Loki, because when you look at the movie, he starts the movie in chains and ends up on the throne.
True.
It's about his rise to power.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That power is.
Yeah. that is all I've got for Thor: The Dark World. But yeah,
On to the next.
all right. Straight from pretty much the one of the ones on pretty much the one on the bottom of everybody's list to the one that's usually on the top of everybody's list. And it's Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Oh
Yeah.
yes! Oh my gosh,
That movie.
this one.
This is also the debut for the directors, the Russo brothers. Not their directorial debut, but this is their debut in directing a studio film.
MCU, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because after this one did so well, they went on to direct Civil War, and they also then ended up doing Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah. Makes sense.
They're just a powerhouse. Plus, like these two directors combined with the two writers that they always did these movies with, was it Christopher Marcus and Marcus McFeely or something like that? All four of them, since they have done so well all the time together, that they've created their own studio. And I can't remember the name of it, but they now have a label for when they're all working together on a film.
Huh,
And
that's cool.
Their first non-superhero, like non-Marvel, comics movie that they did all together was Extraction with Chris Hemsworth. That movie that came out on Netflix.
Oh, that was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen that.
It's good. It's really good.
When did it come out?
Yeah. 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, 2020.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think that's what it was. It's either that or 2019. But yeah, Winter Soldier is just so good. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And
Did you guys watch the trailer before you watched that movie?
Yes.
I think so.
It gave away every single thing in the trailer.
Honestly, yeah. There was actually one scene that I remember in the trailer that I remember seeing a lot of people theorize about was when he's on one of the carriers and he's in his his World War II outfit and he's taking down people. There were like flash shots of it in the trailer and people were like, "Oh man, are we gonna get like a flashback back to World War II when he's fighting and stuff like that?" But really, it was just he literally stole it from a museum.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, that was one of the things I remember. This is the movie that I've seen the second most amount of times in theaters.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I've seen the one with the most is Black Panther. I went and saw that like 6 different times with different groups of people each time in the theaters. But then Winter Soldier I've seen 3 times.
Huh.
I watched Winter Soldier in Kazakhstan in English, and it was probably one of the best movies that I'd ever seen in theaters at that point. But what was it? I didn't watch the trailer. I don't know if I just decided not to or if there was another reason, but after I was like so I was so excited when because I guessed it was Bucky. And then it turned out I was right. I was like, yes. And then I went home and watched the trailer. I'm like, holy cow. This trailer just explains everything. If they didn't show Bucky in the trailer, like people would like lose their minds in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Well, that's the thing is that like it was only like the comics fans that knew because once they dropped the Winter Soldier title, literally anyone who had heard about that storyline in the comic, which actually wasn't long before the movie, like it was a rather newer storyline in the comics because it was in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
They did that whole thing.
Right.
I remember my chemistry teacher in high school mentioned like when she saw the title reveal, she was like, "Oh my gosh, they're bringing Bucky back!" And this person next to her was like, "What? What do you mean?" She's like, "It's literally in the title." But yeah.
Hey,
but I didn't know the comics as much though.
Yeah, I was gonna you talk about Winter Soldier and Bucky. That made me, the Winter Soldier's metal arm. That made me think of a random stat I heard recently. Did you know that in Phase 2, every single movie, someone loses an arm?
Yes, I actually that's actually something that I was going to bring up as well. I didn't even know it until I looked it up today. Actually,
I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean that's true.
Apparently, it was like a some kind of homage that Kevin Feige wanted to do to like pay tribute to Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, just Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. And so now every character there's at least one character in every Phase 2 movie that loses an arm.
Yep. It's kind of funny
or whatever. Because we have Iron Man 3, like the main villain loses.
Yeah, either him or one of his henchmen. Yeah, one of the extremist guys.
Mm-hmm. And in Thor: The Dark World, Thor loses his hand. Well, it's an illusion, but he loses his hand.
Yeah, still gets his hand. Yeah, still loses his hand.
Winter Soldier, I mean, it's right there.
It's Bucky. Yeah, shows Bucky losing his arm.
Yeah, and can you name the
technically, Winter Soldier lost his arm in Captain America 1. Time frame wise, technically.
But we saw the flashback for the first time in Winter Soldier.
Yeah, you see the.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Come on, Chad.
Yeah. Then in Guardians of the Galaxy, you had Nebula like breaking her arm off so that she could fall away from Gamora, and then Age of Ultron. Yes, that's it. Age of Ultron. Ultron cuts off Claw's arm.
Yep.
So that, so that later he can have his.
Oh yeah, and what was the Smeagol was Claw? What's his name? Andy Serkis.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Serkis.
Which fun fact? Yeah, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, didn't he direct something in the MCU recently?
Well, not in the MCU recently, but Andy Serkis directed Let There Be Carnage.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's what it was.
Mm-hmm. And then I think he directed something recently as well, but I don't know if it was Marvel or not. Or I think it was just a random something. But
or maybe it was Last Night in Soho.
No, that's Edgar Wright.
Oh yeah, just kidding.
No, you're good. Yeah. Then you have Ant-Man, which when Yellow Jacket was being shrunken into the quantum realm, lost
Planet
his
of the Apes.
Yeah,
and he did the Batman. He's doing the Batman.
Yes, that's it. He's directing the Batman.
Oh, that one's gonna be good too. We're getting off topic.
No. Never mind. He's starring in the Batman. He's not directing. Matt Reeves is directing the Batman.
Oh, just kidding. I have the movies. I don't have the directed. So maybe he can do Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. Anyway, so what were you gonna say, JT?
I said we're getting off topic.
Okay. Back to Winter Soldier. Fun fact: the theme song for the Winter Soldier, that kind of that screech sound effect.
Yeah.
That they have for his theme song. That's actually the Henry Jackman, the composer for the soundtrack, actually used Bucky's scream when he falls off the train in the first movie and distorted it to make that sound.
Dang, that's actually pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah. So that every time he appears on screen, you hear that echo of his plea for help as he's ripped away from Steve.
As he falls to his
cool.
doom.
Also, what they mentioned in the movie is that the Russo brothers tried to be as practical as possible with all their effects in the movie. Like if they couldn't, yeah, they want to try and make it as grounded as possible. If they couldn't avoid it, they had to do like visual effects and CGI and stuff. But for anything else, they tried to do it like right there and then.
Yeah. Which is cool. Which probably what makes that movie probably so good is because it's just kind of a real good grounded, and it's still visually stunning. Like all the effects are incredible.
Yeah. Which that's what I admire so much about Christopher Nolan is that he always tries to push the limits of set engineering to make things happen. I mean, watching the behind the scenes stuff from some of his movies is amazing.
Joker. I mean, the truck in the Dark Knight, or you mean like that he does it like an actual physical stuff? It's not just CGI.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, he does it practical. So like that truck flipping in the Dark Knight was all real.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like it's all practical, like physics wise. I'm like, nope. the
No,
Dark Knight.
not that it
Basically,
makes sense in the real world, but it was done physically on
practical
set.
effects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Onwards to Guardians of the Galaxy. Director James Gunn, the infamous James Gunn.
Amazing movie.
Mm-hmm. This is so good. And as you've probably heard, what were you gonna say?
Well, I'll just say this movie kind of changed like the tone of the MCU a little bit, made it a little more lighthearted, and kind of like I guess brought you back to the true like comic comic book nature of the movies after having just followed this super dark Winter Soldier.
Yeah, it was kind of a good break before, like, in between Winter Soldier and then before going into Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like it also like started the humor
Mhm.
in like the MCU. I mean, there was always humor, but it wasn't like the main focus or like a huge thing. But then you have Ant-Man, Thor, Ragnarok, and all of those other ones that are just
Yeah.
so funny. And it's like, I feel like Guardians of the Galaxy was the first one. It may not have influenced it. Like it may just be that we think it influenced it, but they had been planning it for a while. But I feel like it at least is the first one, if it didn't influence them to be more like that.
Right.
Exactly. He kind of set a precedent for almost kind of an interesting pattern in the MCU of, like, if you're going cosmic and you're going out there into the galaxy, then everything is taken less seriously.
Yeah.
Like, since it's already a ridiculous concept, they are so aware of that, and like the characters are so aware of that, and it makes it so much better.
Oh, I never thought of that, but now that you
Yeah.
say that, I'm like, oh, that actually does kind of make sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
Also, something about James Gunn is that he does his freaking homework.
Elaborate.
Wait, didn't he do Suicide Squad 2 or no?
Yes, he did the Suicide Squad,
The first one or the second one?
not the second one.
Okay, I meant 2 as in also, but so he did the second
That's
one.
right. Yeah, he did the soft reboot of the Suicide Squad as well. There's a whole story about what led up to that and everything. But anyways, yeah, he does his homework, because I mean, people said it over and over and over again, because like these characters, they're pretty deep cuts from the comics. Like, these were like
What do you mean by deep
D-list
cuts?
heroes. Like they weren't in the mainstream. Like, they weren't very popular characters in the comics. Like, they had their own runs and whatnot, but no, there weren't a lot of people buying their comics. Not as popular as the other characters. And even then, like, these members of the Guardians of the Galaxy aren't the OG members of the Guardians of the Galaxy in the comics. Like, the Guardians of the Galaxy have had so many different members in it. They interchange so much. The only OG people that we see in any of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies is Yondu. That's it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Wait, he was a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy in the comics? Dang.
He was one of the first members.
Yep.
Is that talked about in the movies or no?
No, it's not. Well, kind of. I mean, like, they're in Volume 2. Sylvester Stallone and all those other characters. Like, he has his own team, and that's kind of
Tango and
a
Cash.
nod towards that. Say again?
I said Tango and Cash.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
So
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone and what is his name? Kurt Russell?
Yeah, so
Kurt
Kurt
Russell
Russell. But
the
Kurt Russell
villain.
played a Celestial in the
But
second
they
movie.
were both in a lot of movies together
Yes,
before,
very
which
much
is kind
so.
of funny.
Which also interesting if you didn't know. Well, I mean, I might say this for when we do Volume 2. Yeah, never mind. I'll say that for when we do Volume 2.
All right.
But
Did
yeah.
you guys know one other random little tidbit that Yondu was in another movie?
Cinderella. I mean, Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins. Come on, man! You messed it up.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. Good.
Cinderella. Mary Poppins.
Mary
Poppins.
Oh my gosh.
Genius.
Of course. What else? Let's see. But yeah, he does his homework so much because like he brought those characters into the forefront, and that then now after that movie has come out, now those characters are a little bit more popular. Well, a lot more popular.
Yeah,
and they have their own branching out comic storylines and stuff like that. But even with when he made this like the Suicide Squad, a lot of those characters were really deep cuts, like really deep cuts. So that was very impressive.
The guy with the arms, I was so confused who he was, like when I saw him for the first time. Then when I saw his ability, I was like, oh my gosh, he actually took that character and put him
Yeah, I
in the
know.
movie.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. But yeah, so yep. Have you all heard of this like Easter egg? This series of Easter eggs in Guardians of the Galaxy that James Gunn has mentioned?
I vaguely recall it, but I don't know what it was about, I don't think.
So every time that you are introduced to a new location in the movie, you have like the little text box down the corner, right? That shows you like this is, the Dark Aster or this is nowhere kind of thing.
yeah.
Underneath are like series of coordinates, right? They're actually codes for different phrases that James Gunn has put in there. And still to this day, nobody has figured out all of them yet.
Huh.
They've got about 70% of them correct.
7 or 70?
70% of them.
Oh.
Yeah. So one of them, like these are the different phrases that are in different locations. So one of them it says, "This is mom's cancer." The other one is, "This isn't real." And the other one is Meredith Quill.
Wait, so how do they figure out what, like, is there the codes, are they in numbers or are they symbols or are they?
They're in they're in numbers. Some of the other ones have letters in them. So like, and then James Gunn is really famous for responding to comments and tags and stuff on social media. Like he will respond to you. And that's how he's like, let people in on different, stuff about his movies and things like that. So people have posted their tries at deciphering these things, and then he actually has responded like whether you got it or not. And so these are the ones that have been confirmed so far.
Interesting.
Wow, that's pretty helpful.
Yeah, but you realize like a lot of this is revolving around the mom, like Star-Lord's mom, which that was kind of the main theme of this movie that James Gunn wanted to make.
Wait, so the codes are just phrases from the movie, or are they just
They're
phrases?
phrases that hint at the secret meaning of the movie. So apparently Meredith Quill, Star-Lord's mom, that died at the beginning of the movie, apparently there's a secret that she has that people haven't figured out. But then so they're like clues as to what the deeper meaning is.
Does this carry over into other Guardians of the Galaxy things?
Yes, actually. They've actually figured out a few of them for Volume 2, but I don't have them in front of me right now. But if you've noticed, say again, what?
So we can get there in Phase 3.
Yeah, exactly. But if you've noticed, like the theme for the first of Guardians was about a mom, the second was about a dad, and then the third one, from what he says, it's going to be about like either about family in general or like a sibling or something like that, or about a love, like a lover kind of thing. So we're going to try and see what that's all about.
Yeah, that'll be good.
That's pretty interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Also, to kind of call back out to Iron Man 3, the fact that it's set around Christmas time is actually a signature of Shane Black. A lot of almost all of his movies are set around Christmas time.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Well, now that you mention that,
Yep.
that's
Alrighty. Cool. Yeah. So okay, now going on to Avengers: Age of Ultron.
cool. Age of Ultron.
Age of Ultron. Director Joss Whedon.
Okay. This one, I think I've only seen it once, and in the theater. And in the theater, I had to go to the bathroom, and it turned out it was right before the beginning of the fight scene. So
Oh, damn.
I kind of it was like when Iron Man was baiting Ultron and then flew away, and so I still haven't seen that part of the movie.
Wow.
Really?
Nice.
See, that's what
Yeah.
I find it so interesting that people don't like this one because this one. I mean, if I'm being, this is probably one of my. I mean, I think I like this one better than the first Avengers myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't. It's not that I don't like it. I mean, I just don't watch them all that time or all over that many times, and then I also don't always have access to them. But or maybe I've seen it again and I just forget. But I don't think I have. But the what is it? The main thing though with this one for me is like it didn't really feel like the same wow factor, like because they'd already done everything with the first Avengers, where like you had the like at the end they're all fighting all of these minions and whatever, and so it was kind of like it's not a rehash, but almost like a rehash where you have everybody doing different things for to fight the horde, and then there's a big thing to take out all of them at once or something like that. So it wasn't like exactly the same, but it was close enough, I guess.
True. I like the. Sorry, what were we gonna say?
I said, yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm. I like the first one because I mean the only quality of the first one is that keeps me watching it and keeps me enjoying it is just the fact that it's the first time that they're all together in the storyline. But the second one, this has its own quality to it because Ultron was the one that both put like he inflicted the biggest crack and the biggest dent in the team for their eventual fallout, and also planted the seed, led all of them down wherever they were going to go.
Exactly. Plus,
which is interesting because they also do that with Loki in the first one, but I didn't remember that Ultron had done it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, the guy who voiced Ultron was phenomenal. James Spader.
Yes.
I think that's his name, right?
Yeah, James Spader.
Yeah. I mean, I still distinctly remember the first time I heard his voice in the theater on the screen, and it was awesome.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was that right amount of just creepy and just very. It kind of just. I don't know. They gave me chills.
Yes, definitely.
It also fit the look of the robot itself too.
Yeah.
I was kind of that was one thing that was kind of a little bit. It was unexpected, but I'm okay with it now. Was his eventual face, like the way that he had more of a human mouth. I like the style in the comics where he just has that open mouthpiece kind of thing. It looks a little bit more ominous.
Yeah.
But I think it worked for what they were doing.
True.
Yeah. To bounce off what you were saying, JT, was that when James Spader was apparently the only option that Joss Whedon had for Ultron. He knew that he wanted to get him for that role, and literally after his first take, his first on-screen performance, for the movie. Like everybody just applauded because it was just so embracing.
Yeah, it's very, very well done.
Had he worked with him before or something, or?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not familiar with James Spader's filmography, but I know that he was in The Office for a run.
Oh, I see.
He was Johnny California or Danny California or something like that. Like this just it was like one of the many CEOs that they had, or the manager or whatever, coming through, and he was just ridiculous in that show. But he still had the same kind of voice, and he always talked in this like deep philosophical way, which was comedic in The Office, but then nailed it with Ultron. Yeah, that's what I enjoy most about this movie is the philosophical debate between Ultron and Vision.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the symbolism of them both, and just the ideological, banter.
Yeah, I also forgot that for some reason I thought they made Vision out of Ultron, but I forgot that they made Vision to fight Ultron or something.
Yes and no. Yeah. In the comics, it was the comics and the movie are pretty much the same, except for in the comics it was Hank Pym, Ant-Man, that created Ultron rather than Tony Stark.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting that that they had Ant-Man right after this.
Yeah.
I remember when they announced those two, and I'm like, well, wouldn't they like put it before it and then have him create Ultron? But I don't know. For the MCU's narrative, it makes more sense.
Yeah, it did.
But the one thing that is the same is that Vision's body was created by Ultron because it was Ultron's attempt at the next step in his upgrade evolution.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but then the Avengers got a hold of the body before Ultron could upload himself into it, and then it ended up being, this other AI they put in. In the comics, it was just another AI. No, in the movies it was Jarvis, but the comics, at least from what I'm remembering, it was just another AI.
Oh, okay. Was Jarvis in the comics, or is that just someone they made up?
Jarvis is in the comics, but he's literally a person originally.
Oh.
It wasn't until after the movies had made him into an AI that the comics started copying that.
Oh, I see.
Gotcha.
So yeah, but originally in the comics he was like Alfred, pretty much.
Yeah.
Or Iron Man?
Yeah, for Iron Man.
Or Iron Man's dad?
For Iron Man.
Oh, okay.
The MCU kind of wrote it up in as like Jarvis was a real person back when Tony was young, and so that's why he named his AI Jarvis, was in memory of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, but in the comics, like Jarvis was there for most of Iron Man's career in the older comics, but then they started writing him out as an AI.
Mm-hmm.
I also like in this movie with it sets up so much of Phase 3 and Phase 4 even. It's crazy. Like Wanda's spell that she puts on all the Avengers is literally their futures. At least it hints at their future journeys.
Right.
Oh, really?
Because like with Cap, right? He's back with Peggy, and Peggy's like, "The war's over, Steve. We can go home." And that's kind of hinting towards Endgame when he finally is back with Peggy at the very end.
Yep.
And then with Black Widow, it's like flashbacks to the Red Room, which then she revisits in her solo movie. And then Thor, it's hinting towards Ragnarok and the eventual destruction, and then you see him with lightning powers without the hammer, hinting towards his discovery of that in Ragnarok.
Oh yeah.
And then of course at the what?
Doesn't Black Widow take place after Age of Ultron, or is it before Age of Ultron?
It's in between Civil War and Infinity War.
Oh, that's right. Civil
Because
War,
it starts off with her being on the run because of the Sokovia Accords, because she went against them, and then
that's right.
then it ends with her, with a different hairdo that we see in Infinity War. Yeah. And then the beginning of the movie with Iron Man's vision, it's literally like it's the coming attack of Infinity War / Endgame.
Yeah. There's also a neat parallel when and with Wanda when Quicksilver dies and she hits her knees and has that explosion of power and grief. It's a direct parallel to the WandaVision and towards the end of the show when it shows that happened.
Yeah.
It's basically the exact same thing because of Vision, dying or whatever.
Yeah, true.
So they did a lot of setting up and a lot of callbacks to this movie.
Exactly. Yeah, they set up a lot more of what we're still going through, more than the first Avengers did.
Yep.
This was kind of like the turn.
I remember like seeing the first Avengers and thinking, oh, it's gonna be so cool. I may have said this the last time we did it too, but it's like it's gonna be so far away till we see what the Infinity War and everything is. And then with this one, I was like, oh, it's so much closer, but it's still gonna be so far away. And then after that, it's all kind of a blur because there's just so many different things going on. And this one kind of did that. Like Phase 2 kind of started the shift towards more like not just building the Avengers, but also building the Guardians of the Galaxy with the space kind of space group of people like Captain Marvel and I think there's one more, but then also there was the Black Panther aspect of things, and then like it just from like this one was like the very first branch of the expansion, and then after that it just there's so many different branches that have to be connected in the Infinity War. Or Endgame, I guess both actually, but
that's actually a good point, because I think now that I think about it, Phase 2 is pretty much just it. Like at the end of Avengers, we get a glimpse of a door, and that door leads to the rest of the expansive Marvel universe. And literally all of Phase 2, it's all being spent on opening that door.
Oh yeah.
And then at the end of Age of Ultron, it's blown wide open, and then, like you say, then everything starts, diverging.
I mean, even with Ant-Man, like, because that's not like I remember watching the very first or one of the very first comics for or not comics, the very first episodes for what is it, Spider-Man the animated series, like the old school one. And he's like, I wish I had powers like Ant-Man or all these other people. When he's talking to himself, I'm like, Ant-Man, I've never heard of Ant-Man. And then all of a sudden, like, we have, I mean, not all of a sudden, I guess, but there's a movie about Ant-Man. I'm like, holy cow. Like, these are characters I've never really heard about being from the comics.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is it. So I think going with that narrative of like Phase 2 being spent on opening that door, that's probably a lot of what they were just trying to do to set up everything. And then that, then that's probably what let a lot of those movies fall to the bottom of lists. I mean, with the exclusion of Guardians and Winter Soldier, but a lot of those movies kind of sunk down, probably because they were just trying to continue what has already been done, but also set up what's going to happen anyways.
Yeah, like it makes sense if like Phase 1 is the introduces the universe, the characters. Phase 2 is the setup, and Phase 3 is the execution of all of it.
Yeah, definitely.
And then Phase 4 is just the continuation. It's the post bang.
Going back to the theory that I mentioned in our first one. So like, phase 1 is pretty much focusing on your earthbound heroes. And then you have the introduction of, oh wait, there's space. There's things in space. There's things outside of Earth. So then phase 2 is exploring that. So we get to see Asgard, more of it. And then, we get to see the space people like with Guardians. And then at the end of phase 2, which we'll be talking about now for Ant-Man, at the end of Ant-Man, we see the quantum realm.
Quantum realm.
And that's where like the edges of science and magic kind of blur. And then we get to explore that a little bit more with like Doctor Strange and stuff like that. And then eventually in Endgame, when they use the quantum realm to time travel.
Yep.
And then phase 4 is the introduction of the multiverse. And that's what we're exploring now.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's awesome, isn't it?
It is awesome. So, Ant-Man.
I love the first Ant-Man. That's a great movie.
It's so good. It's like, it makes me feel good every time I watch it.
You're my bestest friend.
You're my bestest friend.
That was my favorite.
He's
that
so
rabbit.
ugly. I love him.
It was terrifying, though. I would actually be so scared if I saw that thing creeping towards me or in my room.
It's so good, man. Okay, interesting story about this movie. All right. So, this movie was originally pitched by Edgar Wright.
Really?
Edgar literally he pitched it to Marvel. Like he pitched it to Marvel like Pictures at that point. But he spent, I think, like 10 years working on the script and gathering the people he needed for the movie.
Oh my goodness.
And literally by the point, like by 2013, 2014, he was starting to shoot the movie. And then what he says due to creative differences, but because what he wanted to do, he wanted to make it a standalone. But then at that point, the MCU was in full gear, and they wanted to integrate it into that. Because of that difference of vision, he left he and the guy that was writing with him, they both left the project.
Oh man!
Yeah. So they Marvel Studios brought on Peyton Reed and Adam McKay to direct and write it respectively. And
so they didn't use anything he worked on for 10 years?
A lot of the stuff in the script that of that movie was kept from Edgar Wright's script.
Okay, so
but it's just that it was kind of obviously it was a different tone, different take, because Peyton Reed kind of had his own idea. But probably I'd say like 80% of a lot of the movie was kept from Edgar Wright's concept.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I guess that's good, but I feel terrible for him that he spent all that time and then he had to leave.
I feel like he would have done a really, really, really good movie. But I just wish that he would have been okay with integrating it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. Also, this is our first in-world second-gen superhero.
That's also true. Yeah, because you have Hank Pym. It's established that he was Ant-Man, and then it got passed to Scott.
Which they actually were originally going to do Hank Pym, but because of the character's history in the comics of being kind of like a portrait of toxic masculinity / abusive in the comics, they were like, this guy's not probably the best to lead with. So they went straight to the second gen, Scott Lang, Ant-Man, and then had Hank Pym in there as like a mentor.
Right.
So, yeah. Yeah. I just love this movie. There's so many different things that is just great about it.
The three guys, the three criminals are my favorite.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's like,
Then you have like the legend David Dastmalchian. He plays the Russian criminal in that movie.
Yeah.
But now, have you heard of like everything that he's in?
He's like
one of the multiversal beings of the superhero, movieverse.
Mhm.
Because he was that Russian criminal in Ant-Man. He was one of Joker's minions in The Dark Knight. He was he's Polka Dot Man in the Suicide Squad. And he plays as a prominent character in one of the seasons of Gotham.
Oh my gosh. He
Yeah.
just really likes the comics.
Yeah, he loves it. Or even like he's probably just a great character actor, and they just
Oh
love
yeah, that's
putting
true.
stuff. I think there's one more that he's in, but I can't remember what it is. But yeah, he was in The Flash, the TV show. He was a villain in that show.
Oh yeah.
Oh wait, he wasn't he was the guy that looked like Elvis. He wasn't the actual he wasn't the villain from Ant-Man. I thought you said the villain from Ant-Man. I was like trying to think, but Polka Dot Man, I know who you mean now. Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, those guys are great. And then of course Louise is like, little bongo
Yeah.
as he tells a story and everything. It's amazing. But
Yeah.
literally Cassie Lang is one of my favorite characters of all time.
She's so funny.
Oh my gosh, I love her so much. I wish they could have kept that actress, but alas, they skipped ahead 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which is interesting because what were we gonna say?
I don't know how I feel about that, but yeah.
Yeah, which it gets even worse because they kept her for Ant-Man and the Wasp, and that was great. But then when they skipped ahead 5 years because of Endgame because of Endgame. In Endgame, they have this one actress play, like a older Cassie, and they were kind of setting up. Well, a lot of people are theorizing that they're setting up for Ant-Man 3, Quantumania, that they're setting her up to become the hero Stature, who's like a kind of a third gen, growing, shrinking hero.
Right.
But even that actress that played her in Endgame was recast, and they have a different person playing Cassie in Ant-Man 3.
Oh my goodness.
So weird.
I'm so upset. But I mean, she's not as much in the spotlight as the others, so it's not a big deal. But it's kind of just like that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that about wraps up phase 2.
Yep. That is it. You guys let us know in the comments what your ranking of phase 2 is. What your favorite parts about these movies are.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that after we finish making the video.
Yeah, we will comment on our own post our ranking.
Yes, and we'll put a ranking that we just discussed for an hour. We'll put one in the comments.
Yes.
I'll put subtitles for everything I said and just put it in the comments.
There you go. That's it. Booyah. You'll put the entire closed captioning for this episode.
Yes.
Yes. But yeah, so JT, I guess you have a dad joke to close us out.
I absolutely do. It's a joke that I heard, I read earlier today, and I got a good chuckle out of it. So I hope you all enjoy this. So did I ever tell you guys that my dad used to sell balloons?
No.
Yeah, he had like a balloon party supply company and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he had to shut it down because he couldn't keep up with the high cost of inflation.
Oh.
That was a pathetic reaction.
Oh my gosh.
So
That's
we're actually running out of helium because it's like a non-renewable source, and we're actually running out of the helium.
Yeah,
So
that doesn't surprise me.
wow.
it kind of is
Mm.
true. A
Well,
little bit.
anyways, I hope our listeners laughed at my joke harder than you guys did.
I'm sure they're laughing at us, not with us. But
Fair
at
enough.
least they're laughing.
I'm laughing at us.
All right.
I'm just kidding.
Well,
I'm
Drayden,
just kidding.
Well,
floor is yours.
thank you guys for listening. This was a great episode. I always love talking about nerdy stuff. But yeah, and we also learned a lot that we didn't know before. And
Sure.
that's the main purpose of this podcast, is to spread knowledge. And hopefully you learn something by listening to us. Hopefully you're gaining brain cells rather than losing them, or maybe you're gaining them and losing them at the same time. That's even good too. But as long as we don't have a net loss.
Fair enough.
But hopefully we are your safety net, for that happening. Anyways, yeah. Oh, yep. Well, make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, like this video, please. But also make sure that you stay tuned for any other episodes or any other content that we're putting out. Thanks for all the views on our TikTok videos. That's been great. It seems that we're having
amazing.
it seems that we're having a long-lasting battle between me and JT whenever we make the same kind of announcement, that it has seemed that his videos get so many more views than